The Polyglot Gathering is organized by Education at Internet.
Welcome everybody to the Scandinavian siblings. The polyglot veterans among you might have seen me talk about the Norwegian language several times at past polyglot gatherings, at the polyglot online gathering. But today we have the opportunity to enlarge our horizons a little bit because I'm here with Joacim Eriksson. Joacim is a Swedish teacher from Vienna. Well, he's originally from south of Sweden, but he has been living in Vienna for 12 years. Something like that. Yeah.
For a very long time.
He has a lot of experience teaching, and he has also developed a Swedish course together with me. And so we're talking about the Scandinavian languages together, Norwegian and Swedish, a little bit Danish. We're going to touch it briefly, but we don't speak it actively, so we will mostly concentrate on Norwegian and Swedish. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Werner Skalla. I'm a publisher. I make story-based language courses, and Norwegian is not my first language. But I've lived in Norway and I studied there, so I speak the language quite fluently, but I'm originally German. This is Svinesund. Svinesund is one of the biggest border crossings between Norway and Sweden. And people on both sides of the bridge speak the same language. Just on this side they call it Norwegian, on that side they call it Swedish. The three languages, Norwegian, Swedish, and Danish, are so similar that we could talk of dialects of the same language. As you can see on this text here, it's always the same two sentences in the three different languages. Who thinks the first one is Norwegian? No? Pros here. Who thinks the first one is Swedish? Okay. How did you know? Yeah, we will talk about that later. Yeah, exactly. So the first one is Swedish, the second one is Norwegian, the third one is Danish. Joacim, maybe you can read the Swedish one.
Sure. So in Swedish this would sound, det finns egentligen inga språkliga skäl att inte se norska, svenska och danska som dialekter. Språkgränserna är politiska.
Det finns egentlig ingen språklige grunner til å ikke se norsk, svensk og dansk som dialekter. Språkgrensene er politiske. So that was Norwegian, and since we don't have a Danish speaker here, we're going to try to play that directly from an audio recording.
Der findes egentlig ingen sproglige grunde til ikke at se norsk, svensk og dansk som dialekter. Sproggrænserne er politiske.
Okay, I guess you could hear that the first one and the second one sounded relatively similar, whereas the third one did sound a little bit different. The pronunciation sounds a bit off, right? But what is interesting is that the writing between these two here, the number 2 and the number 3, is very, very similar. Like it looks like the same text with typos, right? The first text is also, well, it has more typos, you could argue, but there is a little bit of a difference. You have like språkliga skäl instead of språkliga grunnar. So there is a little bit of a difference, but still you can see very easily that this is technically the same language. Now, why are we even having like 3 different languages? Well, just to give you an overview of where Scandinavian languages are spoken, we have, of course, Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. We speak a little bit of Swedish here at the Finnish coast. Scandinavian languages are also spoken on Iceland, on the Faroe Islands, but these languages are quite far from the so-called continental Scandinavian languages. Mutual understanding is not possible. You have to learn them. But these 3 languages used to be a dialect continuum, just like German, where you have huge variation between the North Sea coast and Switzerland and Austria, actually even bigger than within the Scandinavian countries. And the reason that they became separate languages at some point has to do with this guy, Martin Luther. Now you will say Martin Luther spoke neither Norwegian, nor Swedish, nor Danish, and that's 100% right, but he spoke German, and he had one fascinating project. He decided to translate the Bible into the German language. And by that, for the first time ever in history, we had a written reference of what standard German was supposed to be. So from then on, when people wrote German, they didn't know how to write something, they checked in the Bible. That was not intended by Martin Luther at all. But that was somehow the side effect, the unwanted side effect of his project. And that is actually what happened in Norway and in Denmark and Sweden also, because the Danish king and the Swedish king said, hey, we want to have something like that as well. And that's what they got. So we have here Biblia, der den ganske hellige skrift utsatt på danske. So the Bible translated to Danish. And the Swedish king did the same, so suddenly we have a Bible in Danish and we have a Bible in Swedish, very similar but still separate because it were separate kingdoms. Why not Norway? Yes, it's not that they couldn't fund the translators because they were poor. It's true that they were poor, but they could have funded someone. There was no king of Norway at the time. The king of Denmark was also king of Norway back then. And the language that was used in the administration in Denmark-Norway was simply Danish. It stayed like that until 1814, when somebody in Norway could read or write, he or she would write in Danish. Because, as I said before, the languages are quite similar. It doesn't matter that, it's like Austrian people writing Standard German or Swiss people writing Standard German, even less, as I said before. Actually, ChatGPT drew me this map here of the Scandinavian language, of the Scandinavian countries. Not very good at it, but also not that bad, actually, because what is interesting is this border here that seems to be wrong. Back then, when the Danish Bible was translated, the translation was done here in Lund, because that used to be part of Denmark at the time. Today, this is in Sweden. And the Bible translation had also huge influence on the Norwegian language. We're going to see that later. So that's a bit the absurdity of the Scandinavian language. The Bible translated in Sweden for the Danish king formed the Norwegian language as we know it today. Yes, a lot of confusion, as you can see. But there are some differences. I'm not going to go very much into Danish here, as I said, because we don't speak it actively. But yeah, so Swedish has only 2 grammatical genders. Norwegian, if you want to learn it, you have to learn 3. When it comes to the pronunciation, Swedish might be a little bit simpler because in Norwegian we have a, and au, the 3 diphthongs that you have to learn if you want to speak the language. Now, many of you manage to also distinguish the writing. So if you see an ä and ö written with the 2 dots like we would in German, then that's definitely a Swedish text. If you see it with these signs here, you cannot know whether it's Norwegian or Danish. You have to read a little bit more, you have to know a little bit more. But like just to quickly detect whether something is Swedish or not Swedish, that goes always by the ä and the ö. We have 1 sh sound in Norwegian. In Swedish, we have 2.
Debatable a bit, yes, but pretty much, yes.
Yeah, I think because in your region, people just like simplify a little bit and try to be a little bit Norwegian, right? But in
Probably.
Yeah, in most parts of the country, we have 2 sh sounds. We get along with 2 plural endings in Norwegian. We need 5 in Swedish. We can debate a little bit how to group verbs grammatically. In Norwegian, we have 2 groups. In Swedish, we have 3. So I think up to now, Norwegian, it's like a little bit on par. Which one is more difficult? Which one is easier, right? What is nice about Swedish is that there's both a written and spoken standard, as you would know it in French, like Français Standard, or you have in German Hochdeutsch. In Swedish, you have Rikssvenska, very nice. In Norwegian, you have none of this. You have 2 written standards and no spoken standard. We will come back to that. But before that, how do Swedes and Norwegians talk to each other actually today?
Yeah, that can be a bit complicated sometimes, but as we have seen, theoretically, we should be able to understand each other. And I think maybe the people here on the left side are more able to understand the Swedish people than vice versa. I'm not sure why it is like this. The Norwegians, they made up a new language, like a mixed language that is called svorsk. So it's a svenska, norska. And we have this very famous TV host in Norway, Skavlan. And he speaks like this mix. He speaks Norwegian with Swedish words. and then the Swedish people think, oh, I understand Norwegian. And maybe it's also a bit an individual thing. I think most Swedish people also would understand Norwegian people if they would try a little harder. But since the Norwegians are very used to that everybody speaks how they do, maybe they have more the ability to understand the Swedish people. So we have right now something like a need for a family therapy maybe. And it looks then like this. What should we do? Should we speak English with each other? Should the Swedish and the Norwegian people understand each other, and the Danish, that's a bit more tricky because of the pronunciation, of course. Sadly, many people speak English with each other. I hope that this will change soon. We are in dire need of family therapy. So let's talk about the things that are easy with the Scandinavian languages, with Swedish and Norwegian. We see here that we have far less forms in Swedish. So you just say, I sit, you sit, he sits, she sits, everybody just sits. So we only have like one form, and we don't have to think about the persons here. And this is also the case, the simplified grammar, also with the nouns. We don't have any cases. We don't think about accusative or dative or genitive. We just say, is it definite or indefinite? And everything else does not matter. So I would say Swedish is, grammatically speaking, an easy language. But then, of course, what is difficult? I think, Werner, other languages, they have also like you have like the Slavic languages, and then you have like the cases and everything, and then it doesn't really matter in which order you have the words. So
yeah, exactly. Like in Czech, you always know what is your object and what is the thing that you're doing something with, and there's like you can put it wherever you want in the sentence, but that doesn't work in Swedish.
Yeah, so we have to express all of these grammatical functions with the word order or with the syntax. So sadly, the Swedish syntax is very strict, and if you learn it, we like to think about it as a train. So we have like this first car in the train here. There you can have any information, and then you have the verb, the subject, the adverbial, mostly like not, and then you can have a second verb and the object, and then you have like the rest, like place and time and how you do something. So the idea is that you learn this way that the words come, and then you can pick any information and put it in the front, but only one. You can not have two in the beginning for the verbs, then the Swedish people get very confused. And the other thing that is difficult is the pronunciation. So let's start with syntax and pronunciation. Those are the things that you have to learn in the beginning, and then everything else is easy, right? So the Swedish vowels are a bit strange. I'd like to think about this like the first 6 ones as the meow, like the cat. So you have first like the e, e, and it's very important to think about vowels that these are only letters, and vowels are not distinct sounds. So you have to think about it more like a spectrum, it's more fluid. So where does the E start and when does the A follow? So many people find especially the E very hard, because then they say eh. And for a Swedish person, we hear like this A with the dots, right? So we will have like this E, 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 A, E, 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 A. And actually the E has also 2 sounds. If an R is following, it's a bit more open. So other languages also have like this thing, E, 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 A. And they usually also have like this A, right? But the Swedish A is completely somewhere else. So the Swedish A is an A. So that was like wandering to the back, and that led to a very confusing chain reaction. So the A was like putting away the O, right? So the A, and then you have the O, the A with the ring over it. That's like the next letter in most languages, right? And then like this O is almost sounds like the U. So you have like A, O, O. And then there is no space anymore in your mouth. So where should you have the U? right? So it's a bit confusing. So the Swedish U wandered to the front of the mouth again because there's no space, and then you have to say U. So we have I, E, A, O, U. And U is not an U, no matter what the IKEA advertisement says. Yeah, so we have this U is a very strange sound, and then you have like the I and but that's not so hard. But the other thing, we also have to talk about the so-called Swedish prosody. We have to have like this rhythm and things in Swedish. So it's not only about the vowels and how to say every sound, but what happens when the sounds go together. So Swedish is a quite melodic language, like this sing-song thing. Maybe you've heard about that. So we call it prosody in Swedish. And then we can talk about what we call rhythm. So rhythm in Swedish is very important, and the way that we talk about stress. So when you stress a syllable, it's very important that a syllable is spoken long. And if you have an unstressed syllable, it's very short. So the contrast between these long and short syllables gives a rhythm. And in order to speak a syllable short, we have to take away letters, or a letter can jump from one word to the other, or they can merge together. So when you learn Swedish, you read jag bor i Wien, but you speak it jag bor i Wien, jag bor i Wien. So you have to have a very long stress, and then you have to have very short syllables. And in order to make it go more fluidly, you take away the G, the R jumps, and you have a very long stress. The other syllable, the other example means I know that you're nice, but sometimes the letters also merge with each other. So you say, jag vet att du är snäll. So you take away the G, the T jumps over, and the T and D merge. And then you take away the R. So, jag vet att du är snäll. These are some hard things in the beginning when you want to learn Swedish. You're right. And then we also have some forms that might be a bit, some details. We have here something that is not so common in other languages, but also in Norwegian. We have a reflexive possessive pronoun. So that's a bit confusing. So it's about his and her and their. So the sentence here says, she likes her shoes. But in Swedish, we have like this form sina, and then we have the word hennes also for her. They mean her, but the first one, sina, means she likes her own shoes. So it's like reflexive to the other, to the subject, so that you understand that it's not the shoes of somebody else, that is also a woman, right? And then you say her shoes are red, then you say hennes skor är röda. So this is something that can be a bit tricky in the beginning, but it's also a detail that you get used to.
Okay, we also have a few things in addition in Norwegian that are complicated. I lied to you a little bit before when I said that the Norwegian written language is exactly like Danish, because we had this issue with Norway that when it gained independence in 1814, it didn't have an official language. The official written language was Danish. And very quickly there were two groups of people who said, okay, one of them said, like, we have been using Danish for centuries, let's just keep doing that, let's Norwegianize it a little bit, like put in the specifically Norwegian words and accustom the writing a little bit more to the pronunciation, how we would say things in Norway, not so much how they would be in Denmark. And this version of the language became what is called bokmål, and that's the one that I showed you at the comparison of Swedish, Danish, and Norwegian. But then there were the fundamentalists who said, no, we're an independent nation, it's the 19th century, we want our own language. They traveled to remote villages in the west of Norway, in the fjords, and they tried to discover what they thought was the authentic, like the real Norwegian that was spoken before the Danes came and ruined everything. Not true, the real Norwegian would have been Icelandic, but they didn't know it at the time, so they went to the farmers and thought that that's how they spoke 600 years ago. And out of that, they constructed a language that they later on called nynorsk. Nynorsk is a bit of a weird expression. It means new Norwegian. It was supposed to be the old Norwegian, actually, but it's so it's messed messed up from the beginning, and you can see that also like the differences are not big. Like here they would say det finns egentlig ingen språklige grunner til å ikke se norsk, svensk og dansk som dialekter. Språkgrensene politiske. So again, you see like tiny differences. It's not very complicated, but the Norwegian parliament made a huge mistake and accepted both forms as official languages, and that's the situation still today. So if you want to annoy an authority, they send you a letter in one of the forms, you tell them you want it in the other form. I gave a long talk about that at the Polyglot, I think, a year ago, so if you want to watch it on YouTube, feel free to check it out. But fortunately, 90% of the population nowadays use bokmål. More complication, people ask me, who speaks nynorsk, who speaks bokmål? Nobody. Norwegian is an entirely dialectal language. People use their own dialect. So whenever somebody opens their mouth, you know where they come from. You will hear university lectures in the Western dialect, in the Northern dialect, and so on. So that makes it a little bit complicated, firstly, because you have to choose a dialect that you want to learn yourself. And secondly, ideally, you will also be able to understand dialects a little bit. And you can see here just this example of the possessive pronoun there. Like in bokmål, they would write deres. In nynorsk, they would write deira. And then you have 100,000 variations in the dialects. Pronunciation, Joacim said something about the vowel richness of the Scandinavian language. That is an issue for listening comprehension, because this is a meaningful conversation. I is what the one guy says, and the other one replies, o. And it means it's a stretch because it's a Northern Norwegian dialect. It is like the A is an abbreviation. It means Arbeiderpartiet, the democratic, social democratic party. It means I'm in the social democratic party, and the other guy says I'm also in the social democratic party. So it's a bit of a, yeah, but it is possible, as you have like in Czech, you have sentences without vowels, and in Norwegian you can make sentences that are entirely made up of vowels. In Danish it's much worse. The Danish language has 1,428 vowels, and every year linguists discover new vowels in the Danish language. That makes it very, very, very hard to understand. So Danish people understand Norwegians without problems. The other way around is hard. There is also an experiment they made on Danish people talking to each other, and they found out that they ask for clarification more often than native speakers of any other language. So they don't understand themselves. We have false friends between Norwegian and Swedish. Don't need to go into detail here, but some of them are really weird. Like, for example, the anledning. If you call someone and said, I didn't have the anledning to call you, then one group will think you didn't have the opportunity, the other will think you didn't have any reason. So there can be some confusion, and people can get a little bit insulted. Det er rart, right? Like, that's weird, but the Swedish think that that's sweet, actually. What would you like to do? Should you learn Norwegian? Should you learn Swedish? Or maybe even both, since they are so similar. So maybe, Joacim, you have something to advertise the Swedish language a little bit?
Well, of course, I like Swedish more. I guess it depends on where you want to go and where your heart is. But my heart is with Swedish. We like the music, right, from Sweden. It is the biggest Scandinavian language, but that doesn't necessarily have to be an argument. What do you think? Why didn't you choose Swedish, Werner?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I would, of course, go more to the Norwegian side, obviously, because I believe that linguistically it's in the middle. There's this joke that you might have heard from me before. There's just one Scandinavian language, but the Swedes don't know how to write it, and the Danes don't know how to pronounce it. There is a kernel of truth in that joke, as it is, I think, really easier to branch out into Swedish or into Norwegian if you, into Swedish, into Danish if you speak Norwegian. But of course, that shouldn't determine what you want to do. Norway is a country of a lot of job opportunities. Of course, it's the most beautiful country with the fjords and the mountains and everything. But in the end, of course, it's about where your heart is, what you find interesting, the literature. If you have a boyfriend in Denmark, girlfriend in Norway, I think these things are more important than how many speakers and what is linguistically relevant, I guess.
Yeah, so if you want to learn Swedish, I would say first you should focus on the syntax and the pronunciation. So that you can speak, say something. And once you get that, do focus on listening, not only on reading, because it's very confusing to read all of these letters that are not there. And then you start to think, can you please speak slower? I don't understand. And then I say, no, the reason why you don't hear it is because it's not spoken. Nothing is wrong with your ears. So focus on listening. And then after that, the other parts of the grammar is quite simple. So study and practice the other concepts of the grammar. And then I would say learn vocabulary through association and stories. That is a really good thing, and that could also maybe help you to avoid the confusions sorry, my German, between Norwegian and Swedish. Because of course, if you have languages that are very similar, you get confused. So try to associate, try to say, hey, how are you feeling? Are you sad? What do you do when you're sad? When I'm sad, I cry. When do you cry? I cry when I watch sad movies. And then you realize, oh, I'm sad and sad movies are different words. Oh my God. So those things can be very confusing. And of course, you also have to have fun. It's very important. But I think this association and story is a good thing because then you can put the word somewhere. And then it's easier to not think about Norwegian. Then you think this story is Swedish, and so on. What would you do with the Norwegian?
Yeah, well, I subscribe to everything you just said, and on top of that, a few practical tips for Norwegian. First of all, you have to decide for a written language, and I know that I got a lot of hate mail from native Norwegians for that, but you will learn bokmål. Don't bother with nynorsk, it's not worth the effort. Only 10% of the population use it. I lied to you when I said there is no standard. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Of course, in some situations, you have to choose a standard, like you make an announcement on the train, which dialect do you record it in? People just choose Oslo. Why? It's the capital. It's where most Norwegians live, so it's the biggest region. It's where most of the foreigners are, most of the jobs are, and it's relatively close to bokmål, so people just usually go with that. So if you have no clue where you're going to live in Norway, for example, or where you have family or friends or a cottage that you always go to, you can choose Oslo dialect. You can change it afterwards. I speak with a northern dialect because I lived there, and I started also with Oslo dialect. Some passive understanding of nynorsk and the different dialects is good because you will encounter it everywhere. You will read texts in nynorsk, you will hear all dialects everywhere in the country because people move around and they take their dialects with them, of course. And lastly, we'll get into that in a minute. What if you want to learn both? We are at the Polyglot gathering here, so there might be people who say either, hey, let me just learn all Scandinavian languages at the same time, or who have already learned two and want to learn a third one or something like that. You have these two options, and to be honest, I'm not an expert on learning them at the same time, but there is somebody who is associated with the Polyglot gathering and who has a lot of experience with it. Her name is Elisa Polese. If you Google her, she works mainly with Spanish, Italian, German, I think, some Russian. But what she says should be applicable in your case also. So it's possible to learn the two languages at the same time, but make sure mostly to focus on the differences. So whenever you go and you learn one sentence, check what are the words that are different between Norwegian and Swedish. And practice switching from early on, from the beginning. Actually, you will always have to practice, okay, 3 minutes I'm going to say something in Norwegian, then 3 minutes in Swedish, or I'm going to say this sentence in Norwegian, then the same sentence in Swedish, and so on. So your brain stores this basically a little bit in different compartments, and it doesn't become this kind of svosk that Joacim was talking about before. What if you want to learn one of them first and then the other one? Joacim can say something about that, maybe?
Yes, I would say it is a bit hard to do it if you think that you've learned a language and then you want to learn the other one and then you say, I already know it, why should I bother so much? But I would say learn it from scratch. Please be patient because that will avoid the confusion. But at the same time, it is the same structure. If you understand the difference between sin and hennes in Swedish, you also understand it in Norwegian. So you have already understood it, so it will go faster also. But try to learn from scratch and don't take any shortcuts. The confusion will sabotage everything.
Okay, so as we mentioned a little bit before, we have to also sell you something, right? We developed courses for both languages, actually also for Danish, but it's not finished yet. So there's a Norwegian course and a Swedish course that is each based on a story. It's a different story. They're adapted to the country, and they're very absurd. The Swedish story is about a ghost, like somebody who got killed in a road accident, and then he decided to keep living in his house as a ghost, but he gets very annoyed because another family is moving in. The Norwegian one is about a doll that is actually alive, but the people who created it don't know that it's alive, and yeah, that creates all sorts of complications. We have actually 2 offers for you. Maybe you want to take a picture of this link. I forgot to put QR code to it. These are online video courses where you have the full pronunciation and interactive exercises and everything. There is a discount code on that page. So if you want to buy one of them during the Polyglot until Sunday, there is a discount on it. And also we have a special offer for those of you who would like to buy who would like to learn both languages. Buy the Swedish course, send me an email, and I will enroll you manually into the Norwegian course. Only in this order, please buy the Swedish course, and then I'll do the Norwegian manually. That's, yeah, for technical reasons, you can just send me an email. Yeah, that's just an excerpt from the course where I'm actually teaching how to pronounce the Norwegian E. So these are the things that you're going to learn. We do that also for other languages, for German, for Chinese, as I said before, for Danish. And other languages will hopefully come soon. We have a table out there at opposite of the registration desk, so if you want to catch up with us after the talk, we're there. We have the essence of these courses also as books, like printed books, you know, on paper, dead trees, as people used to have. You can look at them over there. If you have any questions, now is the time to put them on Slido, but after, if you come up with something that you forgot and you wanted to ask and you don't see us anymore, these are our email addresses. The first one is for me, the second one is for Joacim. You can also follow Joacim on Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram also, it's just my name. You will find me. Yeah, Joacim is only here today, so if you want to talk to him, it would be after the talk now at the registration desk or opposite the registration desk. I'm here until Sunday. And yeah, Joacim also teaches. He teaches online. If you're looking for a competent Swedish teacher, then that's where to go. Cool. I guess we have plenty of times for questions, and hope there is not too much confusion. I have to, I think, go somewhere else. Oh, no, I can read the questions here. Yeah, okay. Can you talk about kebabnorsk? Kebabnorsk is an expression that is like a little bit, we don't really know whether it's derogatory or not so much, so that changes a little bit in the context you use it. It is basically a language that developed mostly in Oslo. It's mostly East Oslo dialect mixed with words from Arabic, Turkish, like from languages where there was a lot of immigration from in the 1980s. Quite hard to understand. I'm not good at it at all. What is quite new is that we have some literature about this that uses it a lot. So I think it would be possible to give an entire talk about kebabnorsk, and I'm really not an expert on it. But yeah, that's actually what it means, kebabnorsk. Whether you learn Swedish or Norwegian, how likely is it that native speakers will answer in English and wonder why you're even learning this language? Oh, does that happen in Sweden?
I hear it all the time. I want to think good about people. I think it's because of the pronunciation. So this idea, if your pronunciation is not good, the Swedish people are like, I'm not used to getting the information in this way, and then they switch to English. But maybe there are also some people who just, come on, it's easier just to speak English. But that would be very sad. I hope that it's about the pronunciation. So please learn a good pronunciation in the beginning. It's not that hard, it's possible. And then I think that the Swedes also tend to answer in Swedish.
It might also have to do about the situation. So if you're a beginner and you ask the waitress in a cafe where it's like very stressful right now, and you try to tell her something, she's just like, oh, come on, let's do English. But but usually Scandinavian people, in my experience, are very happy when you learn the language, because obviously it's a small language, and yeah, it shows interest to the culture and to the country. Would knowing German help you more with Swedish or Norwegian?
Oh, I have this every day because I teach a lot of German-speaking people. Yes and no. It's confusing because we have very many words that are similar, but they mean something completely different. You say in German, you say putzen, and the only thing that you can putzen in Swedish is the windows, because we brush our teeth. And if you want to clean your apartment, it's another putzen. So you have to be very careful with the words. But when you're very advanced and read complicated text, then you can say, oh, that's a German word. Oh, that's a German word. Oh, that's a German word. So it's easier later on. It's easier, and in the beginning, it's very confusing. So learn what the words mean, and don't try to translate too much. It can be confusing.
I don't think, though, that there is a big difference between Swedish and Norwegian when it comes to knowing German words. I mean, it's cool, you will have an advantage, but I don't think that there's a big difference. I mean, maybe there are some few more German words in the Swedish language than in the Norwegian one, but I think it's not a big difference. I mean, it's the same language, as I said before.
Yeah.
I was told by a Swede that Danish is like speaking Swedish with potatoes in your mouth. Does it sound that way to you?
Yeah, that's like a common, it is a common idea. But Swedish people also think that Norwegian sounds very funny, and we even make up words and say, oh, this is also Norwegian. And then we say, gulebøy is a banana, but it's not a banana, it's just, you just say banana, right? What's the word for banana in Norwegian?
Banan.
Not gulebøy, so not a bended yellow. Okay, now that's just a joke, yeah. Yes, it's true. The Danish people speak with a word in your mouth, or like they have porridge or something, or yeah. But that's not very nice. I don't like to think about other languages like that.
Yeah, it's not very... do we have people from Denmark here? No. Okay. So yes, it sounds like potatoes. Okay. Do you guys think that Norwegian understands Swedish more because they have more exposure to it than the other way around?
Yeah, definitely. I think so.
Yeah, I would say that
yeah.
also. Yeah, that's like, it's common to watch Swedish TV, hear Swedish podcasts or something in Norway. I think in Sweden that's not so common.
Yeah, we have the Skavlan, but he speaks Swedish, you know. We think that he speaks Norwegian.
Yeah, pretending that it's Norwegian, right? Yeah. Okay, do Norwegians understand Åland Swedish easily? To be honest, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I ever heard somebody speak with Åland dialect. How far is that from like Riksvenska?
Yeah, I'm also not an expert on that. Maybe, but I don't see why it would be very different than the other Swedish.
I think it would be more difficult to understand Danish still, to be honest. Any tips on mixing up languages when learning Norwegian after Swedish? Okay, I think I would go back to what Joacim said before. Learn it from scratch. That sounds weird, right? Because you're like, yeah, okay, I understand everything. But then you can focus on the differences. So you have the time to really put it like in this different compartment of your head.
Yes, and I think it's also a very big question of passively and actively. When you have to speak, you have to find the word, but if somebody speaks to you, you just only have to understand them. So that is a problem. If you want to learn any language actively, you also have to focus on meaning more. And that's why try to be patient and try to not be so proud. Yeah, try to continue
to learn it from scratch.
Yeah, to learn it from scratch. It's
Unfortunately,
better.
yeah.
It is quicker, I would say. Yeah.
Which Scandinavian language is closest to German, in your opinion? I think we talked about that before. I would say similarly distant. I mean, I just have this one word, fönster, in Swedish. It's like fenster in German, but it's vindu in Norwegian. But I think it would be possible to find a dozen other examples where it's the other way around. So I don't think there is. I don't really think there is a difference. Both languages were heavily influenced by German. They both are Germanic languages, and as we said many times, they are technically the same language, so I don't think there is a difference. Based on proximity, is it easier to learn Swedish or Norwegian from German or from English?
Both would be great.
Yeah, I would say no big difference there either. The English language was also heavily influenced by the Vikings, by Scandinavians actually, so you will recognize a lot of words, like the Vindu, for example, that got into the English language. I wouldn't say there's a big difference.
Like modern Swedish, like how Swedish is changing right now, we're also taking more influence from English, and we use more English words. So, it's a mix. But I still have the... maybe English is sorry, my German. It's a mix. It has its pros and cons.
Do Norwegians even understand each other with so many dialects? How do they find common ground? Yes, the dialect continuum is not that far that you wouldn't understand each other. There are a few exceptions, like if you go into some remote valley at 2,000 meters and you find a farmer who has lived there 75 years, never left the village, you might be lost. But mostly Norwegian dialects are understandable. So it's not like in German, where the dialect continuum is much further, where people from the coast would not understand the Swiss if there wasn't standard German. It's not like that in Norwegian. The variation is not that big, which is why it's weird that you even need two written languages for it, right? It doesn't make any sense, but it's just a reality. How to practice Swedish pronunciation if you don't know any native speakers? That's something for you.
That is a very interesting question. You can also listen to audio recordings. Here, you should also mention Olle Kjellin. He's an
author from Sweden. He's a medical doctor, I think, and he talks a lot about pronunciation. He has great books, great content.
He wrote the book Svensk prosodi i praktiken. It's a very good book, and his philosophy about pronunciation practice is also great. And listen and he has like these ideas that you should learn these 30 sentences that are like where you go through the whole pronunciation, and then you should like listen to them. And you should shadow. You shouldn't repeat, listen, repeat. You should listen and speak at the same time to connect your hearing with your speaking, so that you like speak what you hear. It's a very interesting thing. You should definitely check out Olle Kjellin.
And you should also check out Joacim's Swedish course, because he also teaches the pronunciation.
I also talked about all of those things in the pronunciation part of our course. Yes, it's a very interesting topic.
Do you share much slang or curse words? I would say some yes, and some are false friends. So you have to be a little bit careful about that. I would be, You have to learn the languages separately. Yes. Which brings us to the next question, actually, right? Are there any dangerous false friends to be aware of? Yes. We have this samlag, right? For example.
Yeah, samlag. I don't know if you guys read that quickly, but samlag means something completely different in Swedish than in Norwegian.
I think we still have a minute to find it. Let me see. Here. No.
No. It was later.
I skipped it, right?
Da, da, da.
No. Oh, here. Okay.
There,
so
yes.
yeah, samlag. There is a Norwegian publisher who is called the Norske Samlaget. And Swedes find that very funny.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we have 1 minute left or something like that. I think it's 2 minutes. Okay, do you guys understand each other's local language. If so, can you have a short conversation now using your own local language? Yeah, maybe a minute, right? Kan vi si
vi kan
noe på
prate
norsk?
litt,
Ja, det kan vi, ikke sant? Når skal du tilbake til Wien i kveld, Joacim?
Ja, ikväll ska jag ta tåget ganska sent, men det är bara 1,5 timme.
Ja, det er ikke så lenge, ikke sant?
Ja, och det var inte så dyrt heller, det var ganska billigt.
Ja, det var billig?
Ja,
Ja, okej.
9 euro tror jag.
Ok, det høres jo bra ut.
Ja.
Når går toget? Når går toget? Husker du det?
Jag tror vid 9:30 ungefär.
Ja, ok, ja. Så vi har ännu mye tid på Polyglot Gathering.
Ja, det har vi. Det var, vad ska vi göra ikväll? Det fanns någon...
Det blir en sånn matfestival, tror jeg.
Ja, vi måste smaka, vi måste prova en massa mat.
Ja, absolutt. Ja.
Ja.
So you see it works. Ja,
Yeah, it
ja.
works.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Unfortunately, we can do the rest of the questions at our stand if you want. Otherwise, enjoy the Polyglot Gathering. Ha det bra.
Tack så mycket. Tack.